Very often, a company will have their own standards and want their templates to be laid out in such a way that they have certain options set, certain line fonts, and certain symbols set the way they want. This is an excellent opportunity to work as a template. So when I create a new project, it asks me for a template from this list. Now let's say I like everything that's here in the ANSI template except a few things. I'd want to start from there. Let me just choose my default language and set the name of the project, project dash. I'm going to have our contract number scheme here. And here, the drawing office, this is my own company. So I'm going to put my company name here, as well as the address for my company, and a default description. That way, it'll already be filled out with this information when you create the next project, and save it as a template, of course. So I'm opening the default ANSI template with that default metadata. We're going to make a few changes to the interface for this particular project. In here, you notice that I have a cover page, drawing list, line diagram, a power diagram, and a control diagram. I like the way that's laid out. I also have a projects menu where I have the main electrical closet. Now, let's say every time I call out an electrical closet, I like to call out the components that are inside the closet on DIN rail as one location, and components that are on the door as another location. So I can add a new location by right mouse clicking on the locations manager and giving it a name. So we'll call this the door location. As you can see, it's a sub-location because I created it on the main location. And we'll call out the chassis of the cabinet as another location. Now that these are here, I have the template to give that to me every single time. I don't need to do that ever again once I save the template file. Other things that I might want to consider doing are going to the Project tab and going to the Configurations menu. So under Configurations, there are a number of template-specific items. I'm going to choose the Projects menu and set my default language to English, French, and Japanese, as I might have distributed engineering facilities throughout the world, and I want to share this document in those languages. I'm also going to set my gauge sizes for my cables to default to the AWG, American Wire Gauge Standard. I'm going to set my default graphics options. For example, I don't like seeing connection dots on my symbols, but I do want to see connection dots on my wires because that's the ANSI standard way of showing things. I also want to show things in a very highlighted way if there's some kind of conflict. So I'm going to set my default wire style to a zigzag line font if it sees a conflict. So take a close look at your project settings when you're setting up your default templates to set them exactly the way you want every single time, including your font types and sizes, the way you call out book numbers, folder numbers, schematic numbers, how you mark your components, which title blocks you want to default to for every type of document that you work in, and the libraries and palettes that you wish to be available. Since this is an ANSI template, I'm setting it to use the ANSI type libraries, but not the ISO libraries. Your wire styles are also part of the default template, so you want to make sure that the types of wires and the gauges that you like to use are in your template. So let's go ahead and save this template now. So if I go to my projects manager, you'll notice in blue is the project that I'm working on right now. I'm going to close it. You notice that I haven't saved it. Every time you work in SOLIDWORKS Electrical, it's always saving to the database every time you make a change. The only exception is if you draw custom objects like lines and circles that aren't connected to database information. Now I want to save this as a template now that I've closed the template. I'll choose that option, and I'm going to call this my default template. And I'll choose the OK button here, and it will archive it to the database. And now, as a new option, when I create a new project, I'll have my default template right here, and everything will be filled out the way I want. It appended a number 9 because it's the 9th project that I've created in my database. Of course, I could change that name anytime I want. And once it's done unarchiving that project, here it is, Project 9. I could certainly rename it by going to the Project Properties, Project Y. Also notice back on the Properties, the different descriptions in each language that I had set. Finally, you'll notice that my default options are set the way I'd previously chosen. Gauge size, standard, the display of my dots, and the equipotential conflicts. So that is how you create a template so you can keep using the same options over and over again.